Welcome everyone to our webinar today as part of the Indigenous Women Chefs series sponsored by the Native American Nutrition Conference. I'm Mindy Kurzer and I'm the chair of the planning committee for the conference. And as you know, we did not hold a conference in the fall of 2020 as we had planned because of the pandemic. I would like to let all of you know, you're the first ones to hear this announcement. We are going to have the 5th annual conference on Native American nutrition, hopefully in person, spring of 2022. We're looking probably at May, possibly early June. So keep your eyes out for an announcement about that. Instead of the conference this year, because we couldn't meet in person, we've been hosting a series of webinars, and today's webinar is part of our Indigenous Women Chefs webinar series. And we're going to have 4 more after this, or 5 more after this, and we will post a link in the chat for everybody to see where you can register for the upcoming webinars. And at the end of this one, I will remind you about that. So I'd like to introduce today's chef and today's commentator. Today's chef is Elena Terry. Elena is Ho-Chunk and the executive chef founder of Wild Bearies, a nonprofit community outreach catering organization. She's also the Food and Culinary Program Coordinator for the Native American Food Sovereignty Alliance. As a seed-to-table chef, Elena advocates highly for Indigenous and organic growers and producers. She utilizes her partnerships with the Intertribal Agriculture Council, University of Wisconsin, several tribal farms, and her own farm to provide and preserve ancestral ingredients in her community. In promoting the use of traditional ingredients and methods of cooking, she also partners with ethnobotanists to provide education about wild food and foraging in the communities she works with. Elena started as a traditional and ceremonial cook, is a wild game specialist, and prefers open fire outdoor cooking. However, she's also a trained chef and loves to challenge herself in executing multi-course plated meals. Our commentator today is Loretta Barrett Oden, who is Potawatomi. Chef Loretta Oden was raised in Oklahoma, a state she calls a melting pot, as it's populated by 39 federally recognized Native American tribes from all parts of North America. She grew up surrounded by cooking and often accompanied by her mother, grandmothers, and aunts while they prepared traditional dishes. As an adult, she realized the potential opportunity to educate others about Native American history and culture through cuisine. Loretta has spent the past 30+ years cooking, studying, teaching, and adapting recipes to preserve the culinary legacy of her upbringing. In the early 1990s, she and her son, the late Chef Clayton Oden, opened the Corn Dance Cafe in Santa Fe, New Mexico, the first restaurant to showcase the bounty of food indigenous to the Americas. She's best known in the public eye for her 5-part television series, Seasoned with Spirit, A Native Cook's Journey by PBS. Her work in educating others and sharing her love for history through food has earned her numerous awards and honors, including an Emmy for her PBS series. Thank you so much to Elena and Loretta for joining us today. And now I'd like to turn it over to Elena. We're going to have Loretta doing some commentary during the demonstration, and we'll have questions mostly at the end. So use the Q&A function and ask any questions that you want, and Loretta will be moderating the Q&A at the end. Elena, take it away.
Oh, well, Haini P, Haini Karagiwi, Ho-Chunk Rajada, Hahemani Wenga Hingaide, Naga Maichre Rajada, Elena Terry Hingaide. Thank you for that wonderful introduction, Mindy. And Loretta, I'm so excited that you're here with me today. I feel like I want to cry because I'm so happy.
Oh, we love working together.
Hold on, okay? some people might not know, but you know, you have really helped me along this path. And I was thinking, and we had talked about what I was going to make today, and I thought, I'm gonna have to step up my game, but now I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm really gonna have to stay on track and make sure that I can finish all of this because it's you. And I thought, oh, we're going to do it. So I thank you for being here with me. I miss you all the time, and I can't wait until we can cook together. But
well, it's my pleasure. You know, you're one of my favorite babies. You're just such a talented chef, and I've loved the few times we've been able to work together. So I'm really excited that we're doing this together, and I know it's going to be fantastic. So when you have a question or I have a question, I'll just raise my hand.
Just interrupt me, Loretta. I'm always down to hear what you have to say. So we're talking about doing, you know, Indigenous Women Chefs series and what are we going to make? And I was thinking about the birds and the game that we have kind of had a lot of access to with some of these food distributions to help our families and our communities right now. And although I know it's not indigenous to the Americas originally, we had an incredible pheasant distribution in the Great Lakes region to a lot of people. And I know that it's intimidating. And normally I might do this with a wild turkey, but it's really the same principle, and how we were talking about taking back some of that intimidation of something like game meat that the land provides for you and making it like palatable so that you can relate to those flavors. So the first thing I wanted to do was start a brine here, because it's a great way to infuse flavor and we can choose what we're putting in there, right? So I have some water. I'm just going to put this in my pot. And I thought, you know, we have to enjoy the sweetness of life. So I'm going to put a little bit of my maple sugar in with the brine and some salt. But I'm going to get this started with the salt first. And I'm not going to use a lot. And this is actually got some cedar in it. So it gives it a little bit extra punch. You don't have to use like the quarter cup or the half a cup that people might put in a regular brine. Let me get this started. It like takes all my attention, this technology, Loretta.
I know.
Like, is this gonna work or not? Oh, yeah, I think I got it. So I'll stir this, and I also wanted to get this kind of dissolved, and then we're going to add some of these wonderful flavors. And one of the things I was thinking about was sharing some of the stuff that we've found foraging. And I know this is a nutrition conference, and since I have you on the line, Loretta, you know, there has been a lot of talk, especially when it comes to like our culture and our foods and their medicinal properties. And that's a big topic right now. So yes. I was thinking with this nutrition conference, maybe we could talk a little bit about, you know, one of the reasons why I relate so well to you is I know that we have the same like understanding when we're in a kitchen, and food is medicine is so much more than what you consume, right? Like it's the process.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the food that the creator, that Mother Earth put in our place of being is our medicine. And we need to treat it as such with great respect. And it's good stuff. I wanted to ask you about the brine. You know, there are different questions about brining. To brine or not to brine, that is the question. Tell me your take on brining and what it does for the product that you're dipping in that brine.
So it really just gives it an extra boost of hydration. And sometimes with a more gamey bird, it's very like, you know, it's built for function. And so those muscles get to be a little bit more tough or a little bit more gamey flavored. By doing this, you help actually scientifically infuse some of that moisture and get the muscles that you want a little bit more tender from that game meat. And then it also gets the flavor and the seasonings in. So when it comes to a tougher bird, I like to use brine, or when I have a more like a wild bird, it's just another way to treat it. And it gives it a little bit different sense. So I don't always do this, but I thought, like, I'm cooking with Loretta, I have to do something cool, right? So I was thinking that it's a great way, another way, and it's not the only option that you have to like braise everything, that you can roast this, that you can infuse flavor before it even goes into the oven. So then when it goes into the oven, it's just really enjoying its roast, you know? So
Yeah,
I got the salt dissolved and I put the maple sugar in, and then I went and got ramps this season. One of the good things that I was able to take advantage of being home was being able to go out into the woods and really appreciate like the fruits of the forest, you know, what things we're able to gather. And for me, that is part of that, you know, healing that happens when you cook and when you really look at our indigenous food systems as a holistic and not just like one aspect, that we really have to appreciate all of that. And I think the beauty of being a chef is that we get to enjoy every aspect of it and then like put it all together. So I got these ramps, and I know a lot of people think of ramps and they picture the green leaves, but this part of the ramp that I pull off and dry separately, thanks to Tanya Brandt, kind of gave me that idea on how to process them a little bit better. And it has such a condensed, wild, oniony flavor. It's indescribable, but this is like a gem when it comes to infusing flavor. So I wanted to put just a little bit of that in with my brine. A couple sprigs of this sage that I actually brought back from my dad's house in South Dakota. And I always think of my family out there when I use it. So I wanted to add a little bit of that in there. I'm just going to add a tiny splash of this maple vinegar. And you can use, you know, some sort of acid if you'd like other than this. I know it's not accessible for everybody, but maple vinegar is incredible. So if you ever get to try it, definitely try it.
Oh, it's delicious. It's wonderful.
Loretta, what's your favorite flavor to put in stuff?
I use a lot of sage as well, you know, in my savory dishes. You know, I like you, it kind of reminds me of home. You know, there's a very spiritual connection to sage, and I love sage. The maple vinegar, yeah, and everything having to do with maple. You know, when we were up north, I'm not up north, so we don't have that. But we were up north, and we were tapping the maple trees, and oh my goodness, what's the other tree we're tapping up there? I forgot.
There's like the elders or the box elders or the walnut. Sometimes people tap.
I'll think of it in a minute. You know, but what happens with that is it's there in a tree, and it's available for us. You know, that we learn how to do these things, to be able to take advantage of all of the beautiful ingredients that are out there in nature. And I think it's going to become more important in the future for more people to learn how to utilize what's around us.
Yeah, and they're so unique, like the flavors that you can get.
Oh,
you can imagine what it would taste like. But when you actually taste it, you can like close your eyes and taste so many other things that come along with it. It's not really replicable, you know, it's so unique in the way that you blend these different flavors and textures together. It's a beautiful dance that I love being a part of. And the more we get exposed to everybody's has these unique flavors or experiences in their home region. And that was one of the things I loved about being in Taos, is it was like completely different from the woodland area that, you know, I'm kind of used to. And I was able to go out to the East Coast and see some of the other stuff where, you know, seafood, the way they have it out there, of course, I don't get it in Wisconsin, Dells, Wisconsin. So I was like, woo, let's go. I'm ready, you know, and just being able to share those things that are so important to individuals and to appreciate it when you have it, you know.
Yeah, and to really appreciate the diversity, you know, when people talk about indigenous food, Native American food, you know, they think of just, you know, one or two things. It is amazing the diversity of foods that we have available from coast to coast. You know, I'm insane about the Northwest coast, you know, with all the seafood and the sea vegetation, you know, the sea beans and all of that. And it's stuff that we don't get here in Oklahoma. You know, it's catfish and black bass. You know, that's our seafood here. And so to get out there and really partake of these different flavors, and the different flavors go along with the different cultures. So I think that all, you know, you were talking about a beautiful dance, and that's what it turns out to be.
Yeah. So speaking of that, I have, and I think you can see it here, it's a chokecherry patty. And
Yes.
I spent some time, I was blessed, I needed it to go home to St. Francis, South Dakota with my sister, my family there, and I quarantined with them over the summer for a couple weeks.
Yeah.
And it was such a nice stop to my all around like crazy schedule to be out there. And she was like, hey, let's go pick cherries. And I remember going and doing that with my mom out there. So I thought, yeah, let's do it. We were not really doing anything else. We're just kind of sitting here. And over the course of the time that I was there, we hand smashed on my mom's stone that was given to her from her mom, like just little batches of choke cherries. And I was like, well, I'm going to save these for special occasion over the year. And so I thought we're going to go ahead and infuse our water that we'll cook the wild rice with, the choke cherry patty.
Oh, that's fabulous. I had the opportunity to do that in the Dakotas as well, and smashing them on the stone. And did you let them just you made the patties and let them just sun dry?
Yeah.
Oh, they're just wonderful, and ingredients that you can add to most anything. That's the main ingredient in wasna, in the you know, what's that? The ultimate trail food, I guess. Choke cherries and dried buffalo or other meat kept everyone going for a long time.
That's what we did, is we made wasna, and it was like a treat. And we would even put like some sugar in there. And when you got a little pocket of that like maple sugar, you're like, oh yes, my day, today's my day. So to catch everybody up as we've been chatting, I've just been moving around. I took the brine off. I just put in a sliced onion, and I think I have the recipe that I used that we can share, but it's a really simple brine. And that is going to come off and cool to room temperature. And then I'll add my pheasant to it and let it sit overnight, which I've done with another one. But I wanted to also show, like, sometimes it is how you treat, you know, the preparation. And with a bird like this, or a wild turkey or something, I always like to kind of open it up and lay it down so that we can, you know, have the most flavor infused. So it's really as simple as like cutting down the backbone and removing this spine.
I'm so excited you're doing that. You're spatchcocking that pheasant.
Yeah, I mean, let's do it, right? This is how I love to cook this bird, because it does need a little bit extra. And opening it up like this just gives you a chance to really enjoy the flavor and let it like cook a little bit more evenly too, because the meat is so different in the different parts of the body. So
yeah,
I love doing this with, you know, birds, wild game.
and they really cook more evenly that way, I think. And I'm delighted to see you demoing that, because that's intimidating for some people, but all you need is a good pair of kitchen shears and get that backbone out and you're ready to go.
Yeah, and then you can just open it up.
Yay!
Now, like you would like to have it completely submerged in the brine. What I did with mine last night was I put it inside a double plastic bag that I use, and tied it up, and then set it in a bowl in the lowest shelf of my refrigerator, just to be safe with it. but it's really that easy. It only takes a minute. You can, sometimes there's a wishbone here that's in place that might hinder you a little bit that you want to open up. But with a smaller game like this, it's really just that easy. And then you can lay it out and it cooks a lot better that way. So I wanted to show everybody that little technique, but I am going to take a minute to clean this up properly because I want to move on to some of the other stuff we'll be making along with this. So Loretta, take it away.
Yay! Didn't I tell you that she was fantastic? I was even going to mention, it's in my notes here, to mention about, spatchcocking. I think that's such a weird term. And it's such a simple process, and that she did it. You see, we are so like-minded that it's just insane.
Yeah.
But you can do that with your chicken, any bird. It's a little bit more difficult with a turkey, but you can do that, and it opens up those kind of inner areas that don't get as crispy and brown and all of that. This thing, should brown up beautifully when the skin is all, kind of laid out flat. It's a wonderful process and very simple to do. I knew she'd come up with something exciting.
Yeah, and it is. I know for myself even, there's an intimidation and an expectation of what should be cooked or what is considered Indigenous. And that's one of the things that I love about our conversations, Loretta, is that I've never felt excluded with my thoughts. It's like, do what you want, make it taste good. It's about how it makes you feel too. And with that food is medicine, it's more than the food, So it's like my favorite day, Loretta, and I'm putting some of this stuff aside so that I can share it with you and you get a little bit more. You can do with it what you'd like, but I have Jack's rice here. So Jack Desjardins from up in northern Minnesota drives down and his rice is amazing. Oh. But it's even more so amazing because he goes out with his grandsons and they harvest it and they traditionally parch it over an open fire. And it just tastes so much better. Like you can feel the intent of what they wanted to do with that rice and even seeing it, the first time I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, like, oh, we'll use that other rice that, I'll take this home with me, but I didn't, I shared. After that though, I talked to Jack and I was like, I just appreciate that you're continuing this, and any way that I can support you doing that, your rice means a lot to me. And even just making that gesture and understanding what goes into sourcing this rice for us is part of the healing. It connects us. It makes me appreciate, what they're doing in their area to help provide for us. And so I wanted to have a little bit of Jack's wild rice with you today too, Loretta.
Oh, it's such a beautiful process. I've been fortunate enough to go out in the canoes and knock the rice and jig the rice and then parch the rice. And I'm going, this is not as easy as just grabbing a bag of that old shiny black patty raised stuff off the grocery shelf. This rice is so different. It's flavorful. The colors are all beautiful. It's very, very special.
And it's like infused with love. How can you not appreciate when you eat that? Yeah, it's so good. So I am heating up my grill pan and I'm going to, I didn't want to have to kind of shift the camera angle, so I'll have my back to you just for a second, but I'm going to sear the skin side of the pheasant and then flip it over and put it in the oven. So I'll put that down. It might sizzle a little bit in case you hear it. But, so I guess I can share this really quick if you guys can see it. I moved it to this marinade this morning just to make sure it gave it a little bit of a massage, but you can see how simple that is. And it's just really letting it sit like that. And as opposed to the one that I just spatchcocked, you can definitely tell that this has like brought the flavor up, and all I can smell is that delicious oniony, rampy maple. And it's so good. I love it. But so yeah, I'll do that real quick, Loretta. Let's get this going. And maybe I can bring the pan over when I flip it and get it ready to put in the oven.
Oh, we love the sizzle.
Yeah.
And we can hear the sizzle. Yay!
Yeah! Turn it up. I just want to make sure. I mean, that is one thing that you definitely have to be cautious of. And I love that we're having the conversation more, because when it comes to wild game or any kind of food standards, I was telling Arlie, because when we were at a food summit once, I got up at 4:30 in the morning, drove to the kitchen. I was finally breaking down the food truck and being like, what a day, at 10:30 at night. And Arlie is like, Chef. And I thought he was going to be like, you did a great job. And he opened up the refrigerated truck, and it definitely needed attention because of the animals and stuff. And I was like, oh. But that's what, that's what chef life is. That's what we do. And honoring that they gave their life to provide for us means honoring them every part of that process. And I told Arlie, thank you. We'll, he helped me pull everything out, clean everything, organize it, label it again. And we had the discussion, like, anything that you're going to require of me from the government or any set of standards is, when it comes to food policy, I am not going to only reach that, but I'm going to supersede that. I have a responsibility to that animal to make sure that it is cared for until it cares for us when we, get nourished from it. And it's an important part that people don't always realize. It's not just, it's not very glamorous when you actually have to do the work for a day, but when you love it, like what you were saying, when you love what you do, you don't even feel that, at the end of the day, yeah, you're like, whoa, what did I do? But then you're like, what did I do? I'm so happy about it, and you've accomplished something, and you've fed your community, and there's a wonderful reward that comes with that feeling,
Yeah. And you mentioned Arlie. I mean, I adore Arlie. He's been with our group, or, I've known him for, oh my goodness, I don't know how many years. Arlie Dockstader. He's such a sweetheart. He works so hard in the kitchen to help us. And I think he's the only other one that I share tears with, other than Elena. He has a heart of gold.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's been a beautiful journey to be a part of, learning about everybody and what drives them. And it's different for all of us a little bit, I always like to say that food is this great vessel to communicate, right? We can transport people through space and through time and elicit emotion and comfort, really, from our dishes. And we can connect on levels that others can't. And it's really this beautiful way of growing is a community, and being able to kind of stand in solidarity next to each other and not have it be about ego, about I, but about us. And how can we do this together? Right. I'm really blessed to have, you as a mentor, Arlie, to have all of the people that are participating in this wonderful, I don't want to say revolution, because I don't feel like it ever left. I think it's maybe a re-recognition, or, a connection that you feel on a different level. But I truly believe that this path is something that we were put on, and I think that the passion that you have and you share, it just helps others know that that path is not unattainable. That
I see a resurgence, and food is the greatest of all communicators, because every creature has to partake of food. And I've always said that if there were a way to create a gigantic table and put everyone on earth around it, it would be a far better world, because sharing food is one of the most intimate and heartfelt actions in our lives. From the day we're born till the last bite we take. And then whatever eats us, that's down there. But it is, when we are all in the kitchen together, it's almost magical. It's very spiritual. There's a great deal of respect for one another and a great deal of respect for each and every piece of food that we touch and prepare and cook, and then sharing it. Nothing brings me greater joy than, to fill people's bellies and see them smile and enjoy the food.
Makes those like 20-hour days not seem like anything, you don't even feel it. It's you get that reward from being able to provide that piece of the puzzle, like preparing these ingredients that so many people brought to you with care and intention, and being the last voice to kind of represent that. And I love watching or working the line, when people are serving themselves, just to see the excitement that they have or the appreciation that they have. Sharing a meal is a beautiful thing.
It is indeed. It is indeed. And you're sharing a part of yourself. You're sharing your heart, your spirit. We treat everything with great respect. And if we could respect one another and treat a lot of people as well as we treat our food, it would be a far better place, far better world to live in. Slowly, I hope that we're getting that message out through your work and the other work. Oh, that looks gorgeous.
Yeah, so they had these purple sweet potatoes at the store, and I was like, oh, they're beautiful. I have to use them. So I'm just going to put them in this bowl with a little bit of sunflower oil and throw them in the cast iron pot or the cast iron skillet, and then have those roast in the oven alongside the pheasant when we move that over.
Oh, nice. Colors, colors, colors. The more colorful your food, the better it is for you. And we love colors.
And they're so beautiful. I mean, how can you not appreciate that? It's for its purity. And if you've ever tried them, they're delicious, Yeah. And, I'm just gonna add a little bit of that and give them a quick toss.
Is that the maple? Is that the maple that you added?
Oh, no, I just added a little bit of sunflower oil, and I'm going to add a tiny bit of salt to them. And then I'll have them in this cast iron skillet here. So I'm just going to flip this and get that going for a second.
That was a good Salt Bay move you made there.
You have to season a pie, right? Especially if you don't want to use as much of it. So.
So I don't think I've seen many of the red sweet potatoes in the market here. I'm going to look for them. They look delicious. And I probably shouldn't, but I love potatoes raw. I'm always, when I'm peeling potatoes, sweet, regular potatoes, whatever, I'm always crunching on them raw. And how can you do that? There are very few things that we can't eat raw. There are a few that will, come close to killing you, I guess, the
Sorry, I have to keep the skin from sticking very much. So I wanted to try and keep it intact as much as possible. So that way you guys can see. But I just gave it a little bit of a good sear to get it, kind of wake it up and to get that flavor going. And then I'm just going to put it in the oven. And you can see for a normally dry bird, there's quite a bit of moisture that's still in it at this stage. So
What temp are you cooking it at?
I'm at 350 on this.
Good.
And I'm just going to do the same with this cast iron. I'm going to warm it up before I put the potatoes in and get it in the oven, just so that it's like ready for the flavors that we're going to put into it.
Okay.
So let's see. I have my choke cherry water and I'll show it to you. And then I'm going to have to strain the seeds that are still left in there, the bigger pieces out, and then we'll just have like the flavored water that we'll use to cook the wild rice in. So I'll do that here quickly.
Oh, that's a beautiful idea.
It's a great way to appreciate it, and it doesn't always have to be sweet. You know, you can use those sweet flavors to complement a savory dish, and it's amazing when you do that, right?
Oh,
Like
yeah.
it kind of just it completes the bite. And so I like to add like a sweeter squash or something like that into my more savory dishes. And the pheasant definitely is a savorier dish. So
Yeah. No, I'm a huge fan of sweet and savory, and sweet and spicy. I love that too, as you know from the chocolate dish you did in Taos,
yes,
putting all
it's
those,
so
all
good. I
those
mean, it makes
red
sense.
chilies.
You know, that it does, it makes sense. And when you complement that, it makes you appreciate that base flavor that much more, right? So
Yeah.
adding just a small note of the choke cherry makes me appreciate the wild rice bite a little bit more, or the seasonings that we added to that chocolate, where you wouldn't expect that spice on that level, but then it like, you're like, oh, but it's chocolate still,
Yeah.
and there's cranberries in here. And
Yeah.
it's
Just
being
doesn't dance on your palate.
and then in my tummy, and I just love it. So I think you can kind of see that I've gotten a really nice color out of that patty
Oh, it's
right now.
beautiful.
So I'm going to quickly strain that out. And I've rinsed this wild rice pretty well so far, but I'm going to rinse it just a little bit more because it is, you know, fresh from the jack. Sometimes, I mean, it's kind of
you look at the color of that wild rice, you know, and that's the real deal, the real stuff. And the colors are gorgeous, all the browns and beiges and all of that. It's nothing at all like what you find in the grocery stores today. And the flavors are just off the charts. It's beautiful. Look at that. Oh, gorgeous.
Yeah, and there it's so neat because you can even tell the different lakes where the wild rice comes from, because it's so different and it's so diverse, and there's so many different flavors that, I mean, even a different lake from a different person that's taking care of it could produce a completely different flavor of the rice, you know, like it's just so amazing.
We can do a whole show on wild rice alone. Such a wonderful story, and it's a part of our creation story, as you know, the Potawatomi, Anishinaabe. It's, you know, go where the food grows up on the water. I love that.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna quick strain this, Loretta, and then I'll put it back in here. I think what I'm going to do is strain it into this pot here with the rice. Oh my gosh, it smells so good.
Oh, I can't stand that I'm not there with you.
I'm going to give myself a facial boil a little more later. But you can see, I'm going to put it back in this pot though, so that I can use this other one to make. I wanted to do like a maple gastrique to put on top of the pheasant to finish it in the end. So that's the last thing that we have on our kind of my prep list that we have to get done for the meal. So
yeah,
I'm not sure if there's something you want to talk about. I'm going to add the potatoes to this now.
Do we want to bring up the pheasant issue?
The pheasant, about it not being an indigenous bird.
It's
Yeah,
not that I,
got
it's
it.
not that I can't, my family has hunted pheasant and they're everywhere and they're delicious birds and all of that. And I had no idea until I started, researching that the pheasant is really not indigenous to the Americas. It originated in China. And beautiful birds, just like the Peking or the Mandarin duck, they make pretty birds over there in China. And so they made their way here. So they've been here for a long, long time. And everyone in my family, has hunted pheasant for, forever. And it's quite a delicious bird. So just thought I'd make that note.
Yeah. And we were talking about it, and initially we're going to do the turkey, but I also like to think, and you kind of helped me feel better about it, because I was like, everybody's talking decolonized. I want to remove some of these things from my diet, but I also want to appreciate these other things and learn to eat healthier as a family, and so we started incorporating small pieces of more traditional foods weekly, and to a point where like my family just likes eating that way now. Now it's like some of the old food that we ate is not even an option, where we don't consider it when we're saying, what do you want for dinner? It's almost becoming normal to say, I want pheasant, or did we have that bison burger instead of beef? Like, we don't even look at that stuff anymore. And not saying that one's right or wrong, but it's how you use it, and I think you helped me realize that there doesn't need to be one end of the spectrum or another, that whatever you do that makes you feel better. And when we talk about nutrition, that's really what it is what can you do in your life to change, or in your job, if you're serving people food, or however it relates to you, to get more of that nutrients or nourishment is really what it is like spiritual nourishment and connectivity and being in the moment, being very mindful of what you're consuming. And if that's, a bird that's been here for a couple centuries but wasn't indigenous to this area, then let's eat it. I'm going to cook it.
Absolutely. If we can catch it, eat it. And and food is about sharing. So this is, we can share globally as well as we can share what's in the neighborhood or what's in the forest right out there. So I don't have a problem with that at all. And I think it's enlightening, to have people look into what they eat and where it came from. And of course, we would like to be eating all indigenous food, but you look at how huge and how much food there is in the Americas. Oh, for heaven's sakes, from the far north to Tierra del Fuego, there's a bajillion ingredients that we haven't even found yet. And that I want to, make that trek and taste everything that I can possibly taste.
You and me both, Loretta. I'll come get you. We're out.
you drive.
Yeah, I got you. But it's all that, and then we also face these problems of sourcing. Like, we need more people to be able to responsibly and sustainably provide these ingredients to our communities, not just to select few. And really, as chefs, we have to use our voice, and we've been using our voice to advocate for that, and for really standing in solidarity with growers or seed savers or the ethnobotanists, and making sure that they have the support that they need from us, not only as chefs, but economically, that we value their knowledge and that we provide that extra, that we should be providing for our people anyway. But economic stability as you're an artist on any level when you like are around your indigenous foods, and what Jack does or what my sister does with choke cherries, like they all need to be appreciated, that it's not just that, it's the knowledge that's being shared with you. And we kind of have the ability to put some extra value into that and say that this is crucial right now and always, you know, and we always need to be supportive of those efforts. And
it's our responsibility, you know. Absolutely everyone has the right to good food, everyone on the planet. And it's our responsibility to help them find a way to, make that happen. And so if there's a pheasant running across my backyard, I'm going to get that thing and cook it.
And then brine it, Loretta.
Yes, brine it and then cook it.
So I have just a few more of these sage leaves, and I'm going to do the kind of maple gastrique, and I want them to be a little bit more infused with this flavor. And I'm just going to give it a quick brush because I don't want it to kind of burn on the skin either, but I want to be able to give that sweet and slightly acidic flavor that a gastrique will give. So I'm adding my maple vinegar, and I also have some of my Mijoang maple syrup from my friend Maple Rosebud. We call her that. I mean, it's not her name, but it is, because she always hooks us up with what we need. You know, you need production level sometimes of these ingredients, and being able to provide that isn't always easy. So I'm so appreciative for the relationships that we do have with the producers and the growers.
Oh, yes. Yeah. And that maple vinegar is just beyond belief. It is so delicious.
It is. It is. It's incredible. And so from here, it's really just about, like, it's vinegar, syrup, and a little bit of sage, and cooking it down and kind of getting it to the consistency that you want it to be. So I think we have, I'm going to check the temperature, and then I think we have a couple minutes if there's any questions or anything, or if you wanted to talk about something specific, Loretta, let's do it.
We can always find something to talk about. When you crush the choke cherries, you use your auntie's old stone, or was it your auntie?
My mom.
Yeah, your mom's. Oh, yeah, and using that stone. People talk about like apricot pits and cherry pits and all of that being poisonous. You know, that you get that almond scent of, what is it, arsenic, I guess? Yeah, but it dissipates. I was told by my choke cherry expert that it dissipates once you crush it, and it reaches the air. So we just crushed it all up and made those patties and dried them in the sun, and they'll keep forever. You know, that's why Wasna makes such a great trail food, because I've heard that they've found parfleches of Wasna that will, you know, that are still viable, and they've been buried, like, you know, for several hundred years. So it won't spoil. Also, that Wasna is a precursor to mincemeat pie that we eat at Thanksgiving. So meat and fruit together.
It was the best traveling food. I actually got to make that with my mom, and we cut the meat in a certain way, and then we hung it, and cutting it that way gave us these really long strips. And we used that with timsila in the, you know, ceremony. We would use the dried meat and the timsila, and it takes a really long time, but oh my gosh, in taking that time, the flavor develops, and it kind of just all blends into this rehydrating of these incredible ingredients. You know, I'm a processor. I love cooking. I love foraging. I have my own garden, but my passion is in processing. Who says that, right? But I love
I'm a processor.
Yeah, I'm a processor on many different levels. But I love drying corn. I love, you know, preserving meat. Or I'm not the hunter. I'm not the one that enjoys going out and getting the harvest. I'm the one waiting anxiously to process it when it comes. Right. You know, like, I just appreciate that part of the process. Like, I absolutely love cooking, and I even don't mind cleaning up, because I know for some of the chefs out there, they understand how rewarding the cleanup can be at times, and just getting everything set again and knowing that, you know, it's going to happen again. I appreciate that part of it. And the end result is always the reward enough, but I definitely enjoy the process along the way.
Oh,
And being
well,
able
and
to,
that end reward is starting a new day in a clean kitchen. that always that always makes me feel really happy when I walk in and say, "Oh, I'm so glad we did that last night."
Speaking of toast, Loretta, no.
Oh, oh, gas.
Oh, that was amazing. And it was a perfect example of that camaraderie that happens in a kitchen. That one with Wild Bearies, I'd like to promote. A kitchen is a space that, and I'll be the first to say that for me, you know, where I'm an incredible introvert most of the time. I'm a little bit of a misfit. I'd be on the island, you know, the misfit island. But when you go into a kitchen, all of that goes away, you know,
It
and
does.
you just
Yeah.
immediately get into this space of productivity and of pride. And when you go into a kitchen with a good heart and you're willing to learn from each other, then you will always succeed. You know, if you go in there open-minded and ready to do the work, then you will be accepted into that family, which is this beautiful community.
Oh, yeah, in Taos, I mean, we had everyone washing dishes, you know, everyone taking turns washing dishes, and we need a pan, we'll go wash one. And I think we did almost wear Kaya out, but bless his heart, he'd driven, you know, from Oklahoma and hit the kitchen running, which is what we all usually do at these summits. You know, we get on a plane, we fly somewhere, and then we're immediately in the kitchen. But it does change. We're also happy to see one another. We're happy to embrace the new people coming in, and it's our happy place.
It's that it nourishes you.
It
That
does.
part is, for me, is the medicine that comes
Yeah.
with it. Like the consuming of all the extra nutrients that naturally come from our foods is a part of it. But I don't
Yes.
think people can understand what the truly healing part of being involved in the kitchen and cooking or processing, or any part that you're involved in the foods, the system that we have, you know, that keeps us going. Whatever part
Oh,
you relate to is a very healing space for you. And that's
oh
what,
yes.
you know, that can't be duplicated or replicated. And it can't be, it's unique to every experience too, you know, the level of healing that you get from a meal. And
Well, it's almost mystical and magical, you know, just the thought of being able to plant a seed, and a tiny little seed in the earth, and you nurture it, and it turns into food. You know, it's just that whole process is one that is so fulfilling and so you know, it's spiritually healing. You know, I garden with my bare feet because I've got to have my feet, you know, connected to the earth and feel the warmth of it. So, you know, I'm always a grubby, dirty mess. I'm one of those that puts in one seed at a time. You know, we don't just sow helter skelter. We take care of each and every seed. You know, it's like I want to kiss it and put it in the ground. But
yeah,
I love that part.
yeah. And it's relatable and understandable. And it's, it's part of that way that our food can transport us, you know, like
Yeah.
I can close my eyes and think of a specific meal that I loved having with my grandma and my great grandma, and hearing their voices or knowing the way the fire smelt in the heat of the day. Like I can remember that from that one meal. And
Yeah.
part of the memory comes because it was like us, you know, outside eating together on this open fire. And part of that is just because the food brings me to that place of comfort, and knowing
Yeah.
that, you know, I'm never alone. You're never alone when you have your seeds or when you have your plants or even the wild foods that are crucial to us continuing on as well. You know, like it does connect us differently, and it stops that feeling like that you are kind of disconnected. It connects you.
It does. Yes, absolutely. And, you could be walking down a road or a street and a certain scent, comes, wafting on the air, and all of a sudden it evokes a memory, of, oh, wow, I want to track that scent down. I'm a barbecue scent follower. I can smell hickory smoked barbecue from 20 miles away, because my mom was such a fanatic about barbecue. And of course, it's big in this part of the country. And but I can, have the windows roll down on the car, and I'll get, oh, there's barbecue somewhere. Let's find it. Let's find it.
I'm the same. I mean, my side gig, and it's like my guilty pleasure is I work at Famous Dave's in the summertime when I'm home. Because I love it. I'm like, yeah, I'll load the smoker. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Absolutely.
I love processing, and it's transforming something from one to another, and it's flavor infusion, and it's so neat. Like I'm the same. Loretta, I'm gonna come and get you. When we're over this, I'll get the car ready. I'll come find you. So we're kind of getting to the end. I wanted to show everybody this a little bit. I'll pull this over. And we're almost to temp. One of the main things that you need to consider when you're cooking with game, and we don't have the time to do it now, but when you do it at home, I'm just going to go ahead and lightly brush this gastrique on here to make sure that you let it rest. Like resting the meat is a huge end thing. It kind of helps it relax and absorb any of that extra moisture that you have left.
Yeah. Oh, that just looks gorgeous.
Loretta, Zoe's sitting in here and she's like, I can't wait to eat it for lunch.
Yeah. Oh no. And I can almost taste the gastrique. It just,
it smells.
I haven't tried that particular, blend, and that just sounds delicious. So I'm going to try that.
Awesome. I'm just going to pop this in for a second to let that get glazed on there. Our sweet potatoes are looking amazing. And our wild rice is just about done too. So I'm not sure, Loretta, did anybody have questions for us?
Oh my goodness, I have to check. Yes. Oh my. So we have
other people on here with us, Loretta.
We get so involved in ourselves that we forget. Let's see. That was my job, and I didn't fulfill it. There is a question here that says, "Do you ever relax your bird?" You betcha we do. So I think that Elena addressed part of that. She did relax it in its tub of brine, and then she'll relax it again as it comes out of the oven. What's the name of the rice, and how do we get it or other native grown and harvested wild rice? There are several native providers of wild rice. We might be able to figure out some way to post that. We have, in fact, quite a number. And you'll find that, as we've been talking about, it's totally, totally different. You need to always look for hand harvested wild rice, and you'll see the beautiful brown and beige colors. I think that might be it for now. Thank you for reminding me, Elena.
Yeah, so I just strained out the wild rice, and Jack's wild rice is a really quick cook. And you can see that it kind of took in just the slightest hint of that chokecherry color, but I can definitely smell it, and it is amazing. You can see just a little bit of the skin from the chokecherries that's left there with a little bit of the grass. particles that came up, but oh my gosh, it's incredible.
Well, and that freshly harvested, freshly parched wild rice does cook a lot more quickly.
Yeah.
In fact, any of our native wild rices cook more quickly than that. That I always refer to it as that shiny black patty raised rice. There's just no comparison.
But sometimes that's all you have access to, you know, and I've known that from going to school in different places or even visiting other communities. And something that I take for granted at having accessibility to is not easy for other people to have, you know. So if that's what you can get, then get it, and then find a way to get the others and to support the people in the community continuing to do that work. And
right. And if you agree with me, Elena, when we cook our wild rice, sometimes package instructions are not exactly right. And I just cover mine with enough water, you know, to about an inch or two above. And then I cook the wild rice almost al dente, just until it blossoms, until it opens up, and it's just gorgeous, and it's delicious. Has so many uses. So give it a try wherever you can find it.
And sometimes it's what your end results you want to have, you know, like if we're making pudding, we want to overcook it a little bit so that it kind of brings in those other flavors and gets to the consistency that we want. Or if we're using it for stuffing, we might not cook it as much, or, you know, like there's different levels that you would cook it at for different reasons too. It's definitely a personal thing though. You know, some people like it
Like,
not quite as well done, where some people are like, well, that you're undercooking the rice, you know. So
yeah.
there's a great debate about it, actually.
It was really interesting, and I'll not be able to recall her name right now, but she made she nixtamalized the wild rice and made wild rice tortillas out of it. So she nixtamalized it, made wild rice masa, and then made wild rice tortillas. And I was just blown away. It was just absolutely delicious.
That sounds delicious. Loretta,
It was up at Gun Lake. Were you at Gun Lake?
No, I came to my first food summit at Meskwaki. You know, I've always been a traditional and ceremonial cook, but the first time that I really participated in a larger gathering was the Meskwaki Great Lakes Intertribal Food Summit.
Great.
Oh my gosh, it just like that leg just completely pulled off. It's so good.
That's not fair.
And so I just wanted to kind of plate this a little bit, Loretta. I'm just gonna put some of these components on here so that we can show them kind of, you can really do it however you'd like. And if you wanted to brush it again and let it sit and rest with that gastrique on there, but you have this wonderful leg. You usually want to have it rest at least 10, 15 minutes just to, you know, when you talk about relaxing it, you do it at the end of the cook too, you know, so that it's like all still and ready when you put it on the plate, it's ready to go. And
it firms up and the juices, you know, kind of pull back in, and it's always, a rest is good for everything and everyone.
Yes. So, and I personally like to cut my sweet potatoes a little bit larger just because I like the texture, and you get this wonderful crisp outside and this, you know, burst of flavor on the inside. And then the wild rice, which doesn't really need much of anything. And since we seasoned lightly along the way, I most likely will just put a tiny little bit. And when I say a tiny bit, it's very, very sparingly, because at this point you just want to get them a little bit extra pop before it goes into your mouth. And then I was going to share this too, Loretta, because you always have beautiful plating, right? And I remember even in Taos where we had this wonderful wild rice bowl, and we put like almost everything that we could get into that bowl in the bowl. You came back with like this handful of flowers, and not being from the area or knowing any of the vegetation there, I was like, are they edible? And you like, well, I ate it, so, and it didn't.
Yeah,
and I was like, I do it then, and they were good. And so
yeah, I love edible flowers, and there are so many of them that are edible. And the easiest ones to really get your hands on anywhere in the country, are marigolds. Marigold petals, I think we use a lot of that, and even dandelion flower petals, make a beautiful little splash of color on your plate. And so there's a lot of things growing out in your yard that are edible that, if we'd quit using that Monsanto garbage and killing these things that people think are weeds and they're really food, they're edible, we'd be ahead of the game, I think.
Yeah,
oh, look at that.
Wild sunflowers here have this incredible corny floral taste, and when you break them up on top, like I like to leave them on the side as a whole, but you kind of can just break it up and sprinkle it around, and it just uses this light. It dusts with the light flavor of that corny floral, and it counteracts the depth of flavor with the pheasant, or even with like the earthy flavor of the sweet potatoes. So I like to kind of add that at the end too. And I always think of you and Crystal when I add flour at the end. Like, oh, now I'm getting fancy.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. And look at the colors. That's what it's all about. We see our food, we look at it, we feast with our eyes before we ever take that first bite. So that's all a part of the process of, looking at it and going, oh, then you start salivating and I want to cut that up and eat it now. So it's, eating is a fine art, and I have it down.
I feel like I've been training for that for my whole life.
I'm a professional eater.
Same, Loretta.
That's gorgeous. We did have some questions. There was one about, and you might be able to better answer this than I. Is the cedars, I can't even see it, is the cedar salt you used flavored by smoking cedar planks, or from infusing, where'd it go? Or from infusing a particular part of the plant in the salt? You know the answer to that.
Yeah, so for me, what I like to do is get the oils from the leaves or from the branches of the cedar tree. So I'll take some of the green off of the cedar tree and then chop it really finely and get it incorporated in there. And then the oil from that cedar gets absorbed by the salt and really infuses a flavor. That's incredible. I know that like Sakari Farms, Spring, Alaska, out in Oregon has that smoked cedar salt or smoked pinion salt, and that's delicious.
Yeah, I have some sitting on my counter now. It's really delicious stuff. Another question, does fermentation or things like digestives find their way into traditional foods of your region? Well, fermentation, certainly, yes.
Mm-hmm. And even maple, when that sap comes out of the tree, that's the purest. It's enzymatic. It's full of life that came from the earth after this long slumber. Like, we drink that too. I think that it just naturally is a part of your food system and the way your body operates, and it's naturally provided in certain ways and from nature. It's out there.
Well, that initial batch, that's kind of your spring tonic. It's so healthy, and I still haven't thought of the other tree. They kept feeding it to me when I was up at Gun Lake, but it's also, they were tapping the, oh, for goodness sakes, I'll think of it before the end of this show. But they kept bringing me glasses of it, cups of it, and said, drink this, it's our spring tonic. So in the far north, it says, is wild rice available in shops already parched, or should I toast it in a dry pan first? Yes, you want to answer that, Elena? It is already parched, because that's how they get the hulls off.
some people like to add that toasty flavor and just kind of wake it up like we did with the potatoes or the pheasant and put it in a hot pan first. So it is all about what your preference is or what your end result is trying to be on how you would treat it. But there are a lot of ways that you could do that.
Right. The Intertribal Ag Council, which you can find online, has a great directory of where to find foods that are made and produced by American Indians. So look for www.indianagfoods.org, and there's a list of producers that you can order from online.
Yeah. Yeah.
Birch. There it is.
I know time is running out. And I just want you to know, like, how much you mean to all of us and to me especially. And you know, all of us have a backstory and a journey that brought us to this point. I'm just so blessed that at one point you came into my life and paved the way. I love you. And I wanted to make sure I said that before we were done because Loretta, darn it, I'm gonna come.
Like, oh my God. Yeah, no, Elena has just been, you know, a jewel. You're just so precious. And I think we have, you know, time for one more question, or maybe not, because we're waxing poetic about how much we love each other. I'm so proud of what this young woman has accomplished. And so many of our young people out there are bringing new life to the food sovereignty movement, to bringing, you know, our indigenous foods back to the fore. And I just want to thank her with all my heart, with how hard she's worked on this endeavor.
Thank you, Loretta. Yeah, the future, it's hopeful and it's beautiful.
Yes, it is. Thank you, darling.
Well, I would like to thank you both for a wonderful, wonderful demonstration and conversation between you. It was wonderful. We got lots of very wonderful, appreciative comments online. We also got a bunch of questions. Elena, if you're okay with it, we might send you the questions, ask you to answer them if they're simple, and then we'll send out the answers to all the attendees, because you couldn't answer all the questions, if that's okay. So I'd like to thank everyone who came. I'd like to thank Loretta and Elena. Loretta is going to be doing a demonstration in the next few months also, so watch out for that. And Elena will be a commentator for one of the demonstrations, so watch out for that if you'd like to see them again. Next webinar will be Kim Tilson Braveheart on March 9th, and Tanya Brandt will do the commentary on that. And I think that we've posted a link for those of you who are interested to register for that. And we also are going to be sending a poll out, I think, a survey for everybody who's watched this to get your feedback, because we really appreciate knowing what you thought and any suggestions that you have. So again, thank you, Loretta. Thank you so much, Elena. It was a wonderful, wonderful webinar, a wonderful conversation between you two. And we look forward to having another, seeing you both again and seeing all the attendees again at our next webinar next month. Thank you, everybody. We'll close out.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Thank you. Bye-bye.